Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we'll have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It is turning much warmer as we head toward the end of this week, as we could see the hottest temperatures of the year so far. We are looking at potentially 30, 31, maybe even 32 degrees on Friday and Saturday, but it isn't going to be hot and dry. It is actually going to be hot and thundery. We are looking at some severe thunderstorms in places over the coming days. The first batch of storms potentially Wednesday into Thursday, and then Friday into Saturday. We are looking at potentially even more intense band of storms that we did allude to yesterday. We have now got the UKV having a look at it, and my gosh, it looks explosive. Western parts are favoured at the moment. That's where I think we are going to see that combination of heat, humidity and energy, but also the instability with a lower pressure set out to our west. So if you're on the east, we could still see storms, but might not be as widespread and as intense as it will be sat further westwards. But of course, we're still a few days away. Things can change, but at the moment it looks exceptionally explosive there in the west, and we'll look at that in detail in this video. Beyond that, we are still looking pretty warm as we progress towards the middle of the month. We've got these big heat spikes in the next kind of 5 or 6 days, then it does tail off back towards average or above average, so still pleasant, maybe mid-20s. And we'll have to wait and see if there are further spikes of heat beyond that. Definitely indications from the models of some further spikes in heat, but no real consistency at this stage. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll check that out in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see we have got some heavy rain around this evening, but it is mainly in northern areas. Now, that's complete contrast to all the heavy showers and storms we've seen earlier on this week and through the weekend that were positioned further southwards. And the reason for this is slowly the low pressure systems are getting pushed away as high pressure builds in further southwards, precluding that very hot air that will be moving out within the next 48 hours, already shifting low pressure away as that first blast of heat does start to arrive in the coming hours and days. Now, the rain in the north is pretty heavy. It's nothing too ridiculous like we did see in some spots earlier this week. We saw some darker reds on the radar. Again, thundery, torrential rain. Still heavy though, and still will accumulate, giving potentially some issues in a few spots. But no warnings issued this evening for this as it slowly clears away eastwards. Now, to the south of this, it's been a pretty decent day, and as I'm recording this around 8 p.m, you can already see that temperatures are actually still pretty warm in southern and eastern areas. It's nothing insane, no heat wave or anything that's particularly notable, but much warmer than it was last week and over the past few days, as slowly we are turning much warmer. And you can see where the air is coming from: Spain, Portugal and France. Remember, these are the temperatures at 8 p.m, still in the mid to high 20s. It's this air mass that is slowly heading our way. Now, do have a look at the latest UKV now. The 3 p.m. run has just come out, and my gosh, as I said, it looks explosive later on this week. Now, that rain clears through this evening, slowly petering away. Maybe a bit of drizzle and lighter rain in southern areas as the weather front clears, and still a bit of a westerly flow through tomorrow. But into the evening hours, we start to see a southerly flow starting to emerge. And by Wednesday afternoon, it starts to look very warm, very pleasant, as we do see those southerly winds pushing in. However, as we head into the evening hours, we start to see those showers and those storms appearing in the southwest. As really into the early hours of Thursday, we see this line of torrential rain with some embedded thunderstorms clearing northwards and eastwards. And you can see it is very unstable, breaking apart at points, intensifying at other times. So it's very unpredictable, and we'll have to wait and see a little bit closer to the time the exact details. But you can see here, mainly positioned further westwards, but could drift eastwards, especially into the morning. But you can see it does fade away in that eastern portion with most of the instability further westwards. So again, we'll have to firm up on those details, but that's the general idea Wednesday into Thursday. Now that all clears northwards, and still a lot of instability behind it. We do see an array of pop-up showers and storms. Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and maybe parts of England and Wales could be favoured here. Again, we'll have to wait and see nearer the time. And as we progress slowly into Friday, again, a few showers and pop-up storms, but nothing too active into Friday. And of course, we'll look at the temperatures in a minute, but while all of this is going on, it's very hot and humid. And as we progress into Friday afternoon, pop-up showers and storms again in some western portions. But then look what happens overnight. This cluster of showers and storms emerges, and we see a really big outbreak of heavy showers and multi-cell thunderstorms in western parts. A few drifting eastward as well, so you can't rule that out, and they could be very intense in the east. Maybe not quite as widespread, but very intense, being right amongst that big source of heat and humidity. And this slowly clears northwards, turning into a larger spell of heavy rain as slowly those thunderstorms do fade away into Saturday afternoon. But it's a proper little low pressure system that develops there, and when these low pressure systems develop with these big convection initially, they can be very unpredictable. So it could be very active or it could be less active. We'll have to wait and see, but all eyes are on those showers and storms there Thursday into Friday. That's when it could be very intense. Now I do just want to have a look at the 3 a.m. run, because it was very similar, but it had the orientation of the thunderstorm slightly differently. Now, as we do run into Friday, you can see again the cluster of showers and storms start to develop through the afternoon, but instead of being a kind of clustering across kind of a circular area, it's more of a line of storms that develops here, spreading all the way from the Republic of Ireland down through Wales, southern England, into the southeast. So it's more of a line of storms develops through the evening before it slowly moves northwards. So yes, intense storms, potentially even heavier rain here, but slightly different configuration to those storms, just showing you we are confident there's going to be severe thunderstorms around, but the exact capacity, timings and positioning is still up for debate. Both consecutive runs, really explosive conditions, but exactly where it will occur and what capacity, that is what we'll have to determine over the next couple of days. But my gosh, does look pretty severe on these charts. Would be the most severe outbreak we've seen this season so far if we just go by these UKV runs. Now the reason for all of this, if we do put on the upper air temperatures, it's because warm air arrives. You can see as we progress into Wednesday, that warm air starts to push in from the south, so it will be pretty warm and humid on Wednesday, but nothing ridiculous, mid-20s, as we'll see in a few moments' time. Into Thursday, we do see a very brief plume into Thursday morning, and that combines with the instability produces those lines of showers and storms. You can see this plume coming up from the southeast, very intense hot air, but across a very small slither, the 20-degree isotherm moving in, which is a very hot air mass. That is mid to high 30s sort of air mass. Of course, we're not going to see those temperatures because this is going to really blow through in a matter of hours. But if it was around for a day or two, then yes, we would be looking at mid 30s in this sort of scenario. As we progress into Thursday, still warm, especially in the east, but some slightly fresher air mixes in. And then as we head into Friday and Saturday, we see another push of warmth in from the southeast. And again, combined with that instability in the west, with that temperature contrast, that's when we could see another, outbreak of even more severe storms there as that clears through. Of course, the air mass there into Saturday, it's not as warm as it was on Wednesday with that 20-degree isotherm not being there. But the big difference is the temperature contrast. Let's remember, the reasons why we see severe lows developing or big thunderstorms is because of temperature contrast within the atmosphere. And this is exactly what we're seeing here, producing the instability between these two air masses. Of course, the warmth fueling those storms as well. And yeah, that just creates the potential for kind of a perfect storm scenario for thunderstorms as this all collides through Friday night and Saturday. And as I said, if we forget about the thunderstorms, it's actually going to be very warm if you do avoid them. You see, to Tuesday, 20 to 23, so an average day across England and Wales, but still a bit chillier further northwards. Into Wednesday, much warmer, 24 to maybe 27, very pleasant indeed. And then into Thursday, temperatures don't drop away too much overnight. And by the afternoon, again, we're looking at 20 to 25, could be even higher if we do see some dry conditions. But of course, with those storms and clouds clearing away, it might hold those temperatures back a little bit. And then into Friday, temperatures could be even higher. Still the risk of 30 degrees here. The 3 a.m. run did show 30 degrees. But again, it all depends on the timings of the cloud and the rain. So yes, we're only seeing 25 to 27 here, but a very small difference. We could easily see 30, 31, 32, and you can see into Saturday, potentially again, just touching 30 degrees across the Far East. And again, that could be more extensive depending on the timings of the showers and the storms. So can't really pinpoint those temperatures, just like we can't pinpoint those thunderstorms. But what we can say is there are going to be some very high temperatures later on this week. Just exactly where and how widespread will, of course, all depend on those showers and storms. And of course, even if you don't see loads of showers and storms, but you see a lot of the remnants, a bit of lighter rain or thick cloud from thunderstorms that developed, tens or hundreds of miles away, then that could also cool the temperatures down. So there's all these little bits playing into it. And at this time frame, we're always going to see some chopping and changing. So we can show you the kind of overall scheme for later on this week. And as I said, it looks pretty intense. But yeah, the exact details, we'll have to wait probably another day or two to bring those to you. Now, if you look at the longer range, as I said, very explosive this week. Westerly flow trying to emerge, but with a southerly wind as we see high pressure and hot air coming in from Europe. But its longer range, high pressure, tries to build in. And again, it doesn't have too much success. There is this little pesky low to our south that could continue to bring showers and storms. But the general overview is for average to above average temperatures and increasing high pressure influence. And again, if we put on the temperature deviation, you see those hot plumes over the next couple of days. But then generally speaking, yes, there are blues at times, but we see a lot more yellows, especially longer range starting to dominate. So more average to above average temperatures. If we compare to the GM, very similar, those southerly plumes, eventually high pressure builds in. And again, it looks dry and it looks fairly warm. Again, nothing ridiculous with the other air temperatures, but again, a few degrees above average. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, broadly very similar with those southerly winds, eventually high pressure makes more of an influence, but not seeing as much of a southerly flow, which means that yes, still generally warm and dry, but probably not quite as hot as we're seeing in the next few days. And we see this all on the latest ensembles, big spikes in heat over the next 5 or 6 days, and those big spikes in storms as well, potentially there. Of course, we think those storms will be favoured further westwards. That's why they're not too big here for London. Drop off beyond that back towards average, but you can see the majority of ensemble members keep us average to above average for the foreseeable future, with up and down precipitation. So a showery regime is still possible with average to above average temperatures. So generally speaking, not too bad. There are further spikes in heat though, and as I said, those could occur throughout the middle to second half of June, but again, no consistency as we see here. They're definitely there, but no real two runs are the same, so no consistency at all between the runs, with the potential for another spike of heat. So we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, some of these spikes of heat we're seeing later this week, especially that secondary spike, has developed at pretty short notice. So again, wouldn't be surprised if something occurs like that again. Of course, mainland Europe is going to stay in the hot air. So although we could turn a bit fresher next week, we are going to be very close to hot air. So a small subtle shift could still bring that very intense heat back in. And if we finally compare to the latest ECMWF ensembles, again, spikes in heat, these two humps later on this week with big precipitation spikes because of the risk of those thunderstorms. And generally beyond that, we're all looking at average to above average, but fairly up and down there as we progress towards the final third of the month. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay safe out in those thunderstorms over the next few days, and of course the heat as well. I'll keep you updated over the coming days. Of course, we'll have more updates out and be able to pinpoint those storms in a bit more detail. But yes, my gosh, this evening, they are looking pretty intense indeed. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what the rest of the week has in store. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you again for another video soon.